My wife told her boyfriend I was her deadbeat brother living in her guest room. I just played along. I, 54M, have been married to my wife Claire for 26 years. We have 2 kids, both out of the house, and for the last few years, I honestly thought we were settling into a comfortable, quiet, empty nester life. I was dead wrong. About 6 months ago, Claire started joining a community theater group that met on Tuesday and Thursday nights. I didn't think anything of it at first. She's always liked the arts, and I was happy she was getting out of the house. But over the last month, she'd been acting paranoid, leaving the room to take calls, putting her phone face down whenever I walked by, getting defensive if I asked how rehearsals were going. Last Wednesday, she left her iPad on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. Her iMessage dinged. I'm not proud of it, but I opened it. There was a text from an unsaved number. Can't wait for tomorrow. Leaving the side door unlocked for you. I felt like all the air left the room. I didn't confront her right then. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with first. The next night, Thursday, she kissed me on the cheek and said she was heading to rehearsal. I waited 10 minutes, got in my car, and pulled up her location on Find My Friends. We permanently share locations, an emergency setup from years ago we'd never changed. She wasn't at the community center at all. She was parked in the driveway of a nice suburban townhouse about 20 minutes away. I parked down the street and walked up. I had no plan. I was just moving forward on instinct, blood pounding in my ears, ready to scream at someone. A man in his early 40s answered the door, fit, well-dressed, wearing a nice sweater. He looked at me for a confused second, and then his face lit up with a big, welcoming smile. "Oh man, you must be Mark," he said, stepping back and gesturing me inside. "Claire said you might stop by to borrow the truck." I froze. My name is Greg. Mark is my younger brother, a guy with a history of bad relationships, unstable jobs, and occasionally needing a place to land. Yeah, I said. I'm Mark. I'm Julian, he said, shaking my hand. She's upstairs grabbing her coat. Seriously, man, I know things have been rough for you lately, but Claire says you're making real progress. You're always welcome here. Before I could process any of what Julian was saying, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Claire walked into the hallway wearing one of Julian's oversized button-down shirts and nothing else. She looked up. She saw me standing in the foyer next to Julian, and all the color left her face at once. 26 years of marriage, and I know exactly what Claire looks like in every emotional state she has. Happy, frustrated, grieving, bored. I had never seen her look like this. She looked like someone whose entire reality had just inverted in a single second. I had about 3 seconds to decide what to do. I could tell Julian who I was. I could grab her and demand answers on the spot. I could do any number of things. Instead, I looked her dead in the eyes, forced the biggest, falsest smile I could manage, and said, "Hey, sis, just came to get those keys." Don't remember the drive home. I took the spare truck keys Julian handed me, told him it was great to finally meet him, and walked out the door while Claire stood in the hallway completely mute and shaking. I was sitting at the kitchen table in the dark with a glass of bourbon when she burst through the front door about an hour later. She was fully dressed and sobbing hysterically. "Greg, please, please let me explain. It's not what you think." "It's not what I think," I said. "You're sleeping with some guy named Julian, and you told him I'm my deadbeat brother living in your guest room. What exactly am I misunderstanding?" She put her head in her hands and wailed. I sat across from her and waited. It took about 20 minutes to drag the truth out. She'd met Julian at a wine tasting 8 months ago. He asked her out and she panicked, enjoying the attention from a younger man, and told him she was divorced. When Julian asked about her living situation, she'd used the first name that came into her head, Mark. She told Julian that Mark was her alcoholic brother who refused to leave her basement, and she was only keeping him around out of pity. "It was a fantasy," she said, reaching across the table for my hand. I pulled back. I felt old. I felt invisible. He looked at me like I was in my 20s again, and the lie just kept getting bigger, and I didn't know how to stop it. "You stop it by not sleeping with him," I said. I told her I was sleeping in the guest room and that I was calling a lawyer in the morning. I said if she didn't contact Julian that night and end it, I'd drive back over there and tell him exactly who I was. She sent a breakup text while I sat there watching. I went to the guest room, locked the door, and didn't sleep. Update 2. We've been living like ghosts in the same house. I've been organizing financial documents and quietly moving half our savings into a separate account. Claire's been leaving crying voicemails at my work number, begging me to consider counseling. 2 days after the Thursday confrontation, I was on the back patio with a beer when I got a Facebook message request. It was from Julian. Hey Mark, I don't know what's going on, but Claire has been acting completely different since you came over. She told me you relapsed and had a manic episode, and that's why she has her phone off. I got worried and looked you up. Why does your Facebook profile say your name is Greg and that you're married to her? Please call me. I'm really freaked out. She hadn't broken up with him. She'd told him her addict brother was having a psychotic break to explain the tension, and she was still stringing him along. I sat there staring at the screen. Then I typed back, Julian, my name is Greg. I'm Claire's husband. We need to talk. O'Malley's Pub on 4th Street, 1 hour. My number shifts to 30 minutes off. He looked wrecked. I sat down and slid my phone across the table. Wedding photos, our joint bank account showing both names, pictures of our kids. He scrolled through them in silence. Then he pushed the phone back and put his head in his hands. I am so sorry, man, he said. She told me the divorce was finalized 3 years ago. She said you were emotionally abusive and she only kept you around because you threatened to hurt yourself if she kicked you out. We started comparing timelines. Every work trip, every book club, every excuse she'd used to get out of the house. Some of the dates he gave me I could place immediately. A Tuesday night when she came home smelling like a restaurant she'd supposedly gone to with coworkers. A weekend in April she told me was a bachelorette party for a college friend. Julian confirmed he had been with her for both of those. But then Julian got a strange look on his face and set his beer down and squinted at me across the table. Greg, wait. He said it slowly, like he was working something out. If you're Greg and you're her husband, then who was the guy on my porch 3 weeks ago? I set my beer down. What are you talking about? A few weeks ago, I told Claire I couldn't keep seeing her if her crazy ex was still living in the house. I said she needed to deal with that situation before I could take any of this seriously. 2 days later, she brought her ex-husband Greg over to my place. She said they were having a final conversation about him moving out. They had a screaming match in my driveway. Real screaming, hands gesturing, the whole thing. I stayed inside, but I watched the whole thing on my Ring camera. She slapped him, and he got in his car and drove off. I sat very still. Julian, show me the video, right now. He pulled out his phone, opened the Ring app, and scrolled back through the history. He handed it to me. Black and white night footage. Claire in the driveway, screaming at a man who was pointing his finger in her face and playing the role of the hostile, abusive ex-husband with complete commitment. I had to watch it twice before I could accept what I was seeing. It was my brother Mark. Now, update 4. I threw up in the alley behind the bar. Julian wasn't the story. Julian was a prop, a smokescreen to cover the real thing. She had brought my own brother into this and had him perform the role of me, the abusive ex, so she could maintain the fiction with Julian. And Mark, the brother whose rent I'd been covering for 6 months because he claimed he was broke, had gone along with every bit of it. I drove to Mark's apartment. I have a spare key for emergencies. I didn't knock. The apartment was half packed. Cardboard boxes in the living room. His TV gone. It looked like someone leaving in a hurry. In the kitchen, on the counter, was a thick manila folder. I opened it. A lease agreement for a luxury condo downtown. 2 signatures, Mark's handwriting and Claire's. Under the lease were bank statements. The $30,000 Claire had told me she lost in a bad stock investment last year had never gone into the market. It had gone into a joint checking account she held with Mark. They weren't just involved with each other. They had a plan. They were going to disappear together. Julian was the distraction, the side story she was running while she got everything in place. I put the papers down and stood there in Mark's kitchen while the room turned around me. Then I heard tires on the gravel outside. I looked through the blinds. Claire's SUV. Mark getting out of the driver's side, walking around, opening her door. Claire stepping out holding 2 coffees, smiling. Mark leaned in and kissed my wife on the mouth. I heard their footsteps on the stairs. I heard his key going into the deadbolt. Now, update 5. I'm writing this from a Motel 6 by the interstate. My right hand is wrapped in a towel full of mace from the vending machine down the hall. It's 2 a.m., and I've been sitting on this bed for 3 hours trying to figure out how to put this into words. The door swung open and they walked in laughing. They were mid-sentence, easy and comfortable with each other, the way people are when they've been doing something together for a while. Claire saw me at the kitchen island and dropped both coffees. They hit the floor and exploded. Mark froze, hand still on the doorknob. "Greg, what the fuck are you doing in my apartment?" I walked up and slammed the manila folder into his chest. He stumbled back against the doorframe and grabbed the papers. $30,000, I said. "You've been sleeping with my wife, stealing my money, and pretending to be me so she can string along some other poor guy. And you're asking why I'm here?" Claire backed toward the wall, hyperventilating. "Greg, please, let's just go home. You don't have a home with me anymore." Mark stepped between us. "Do not speak to her like that. We were going to tell you." The brother I practically raised, whose truck payments I'd been covering so it wouldn't get repossessed, squared up and told me they were going to tell me. I hit him. I've never punched anyone in my adult life, and it showed in the mechanics of it. But I had 26 years of rage behind it, and it connected. He went down hard, knocked a coat rack off the wall on his way. Claire screamed. She grabbed my arm and I pulled free, and she fell into the spilled coffee. Mark got up, with blood running down his chin, and came back at me. We ended up on the floor in the middle of his half-packed boxes, throwing ugly, desperate punches. He got my ribs. I got his face. When it was over, neither of us had won anything worth having. I picked the folder up off the floor, stepped over him, and walked out. Claire was on her hands and knees in the doorway, grabbing at my pant leg. I got in my car and drove until I found this motel. Update 6. 48 hours later. I haven't slept more than 20 minutes at a stretch. I met with a divorce attorney yesterday morning, a serious, relentless woman who took one look at the bank statements and started making calls. She locked down my remaining accounts immediately. The $30,000 in the joint account is a different fight. That's going to take time. She told me not to contact either of them. I changed my phone number that afternoon so I wouldn't have to hear Claire's voicemails anymore. Then an email came through my work address. Julian had found it from my Facebook profile. "Greg, please call me. I'm begging you. Claire's at my house right now. She showed up an hour ago with 2 suitcases and a bruised face. She's telling me her brother, Mark, found out she was trying to leave him and beat her up. She says you kicked her out because you're protecting your brother and you've always hated her. She wants me to call the police on both of you. I don't know what's true anymore. She won't leave my guest bathroom." I sat on the edge of the motel bed and read it twice. She wasn't running away with Mark anymore. Mark's face was a mess, the condo plan was blown, and the money was tied up in a divorce. So she took the manila folders she'd been begging me to leave behind, and she went to her backup. She showed up at Julian's door with a suitcase and a bruised face and a completely new story. Now she was the victim, Julian was the safe house, and Mark and I were both cast as the villains. Part of me wanted to get in the car. I knew where she was. I knew exactly what she was doing. I sat there for a while. Then I forwarded Julian's email to my lawyer with 2 words: "Handle this." She contacted Julian within the hour, walked him through everything: the lease, the bank statements, the ring footage of Mark performing as me in his driveway, the full documented timeline. He deserved the truth. He'd been used as thoroughly as I had, just in different ways. He called my lawyer back and confirmed he'd asked Claire to leave. He also confirmed he'd be willing to provide his ring footage for the divorce proceedings. I don't know where she went after that. I'm not looking. Update 7. It's been about 2 months since the motel. Here's where things actually stand. I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment near my office. My lawyer is ferocious, and I'm grateful for her every single day. The financial case is moving. She filed a claim for the $30,000 as an unauthorized transfer of marital assets. Mark and Claire had already spent a portion of it. Deposit on the condo, furniture they'd started buying, but enough is traceable that we have real leverage in the settlement negotiations. Claire's attorney has been making increasingly reasonable contact, which my lawyer takes as a sign that they understand the position they're in. Julian submitted his ring footage without being asked twice. 6 seconds of Mark standing in Julian's driveway performing the role of me is, it turns out, very useful documentation of coordinated fraud. He also gave a written statement about the night Claire arrived at his door with a suitcase and a bruised face. That statement, combined with the timeline my lawyer assembled, made very clear what Claire had been trying to do. My kids know. That was the hardest conversation I've had in my adult life, and I've had some hard ones. I called my daughter first because I knew she'd want to hear it directly from me before it reached her some other way. She cried for 2 straight hours while I stayed on the phone and tried to say the right things, which mostly meant not saying very much at all. My son went very quiet in the specific way he does when something genuinely gets through his composure. He has always been the steadier one of the two, and when that steadiness cracks, it means something real. He asked me one question: did I know how long it had been going on? I told him the full answer, which was that I was still figuring that out. He said okay, and we talked for another half hour about nothing important, just staying on the line together. They're both angry at their mother, at Mark, at the whole situation. I told them their relationship with their mother was their own to navigate, and that I wasn't going to ask them to take sides. Whatever she did to me is a separate thing from who she is to them. I meant it when I said it, and I still mean it. I haven't spoken to Mark. I've thought about it a lot. Sometimes late at night, I run through what I would say: the version where I scream at him, the version where I ask him calmly how it started and when, the version where I just need to understand the shape of the whole thing, how two people I trusted with everything became capable of this. None of those conversations feel possible yet. I'm not going to force something that isn't ready. Maybe it never will be. I'm trying to make peace with that possibility. I'm in therapy twice a week. My therapist is methodical and precise and doesn't let me get away with the easy explanations for things. He asks questions that require me to sit with answers I don't want to sit with. It is not comfortable, which I think is exactly the point. Here's the honest version of where I am. I'm not okay yet, but I'm not in a motel room with split knuckles and 20 minutes of broken sleep either. I'm in an apartment I chose, living a life I'm slowly putting back together, working with a professional who is helping me understand what I missed over 26 years. And there was a lot I missed, or chose not to look at, or explained away because looking at it would have required me to act. That's progress. I'll take it. Some days it actually feels like enough. I don't think I'll update again after this. I genuinely hope I don't need to. Hi there. If you made it so far, consider dropping a like and maybe subscribing. Thanks, and have a nice one.